Today, we open 10 moments that shook the world. 10 miracles of Jesus, not as distant legends, but as living signs. Each one is a doorway into the heart of God. Each one is a message that still speaks to the broken, the afraid, the doubting, and the weary. Because Jesus did not perform miracles to entertain crowds. He did not do them to prove he was impressive. He did them to reveal who he is, and to show what the kingdom of God looks like when it steps into human pain. Some miracles happened in the middle of celebration. Others happened in the middle of storms. Some happened in front of thousands. Others happened in quiet places where only a few were watching. But all of them carry the same truth. God sees. God cares. God has power. And God is closer than you think. Tonight, we are going to walk through these 10 miracles like lanterns in the dark. We will stand at a wedding where joy is about to collapse. We will sit among hungry crowds who have nothing left. We will step into a storm where grown men fear death. We will watch the blind open their eyes for the first time. We will witness a village freed from torment. We will see a tree wither as a warning. We will stand at a tomb where hope seems buried. We will climb a mountain where glory breaks through the veil. And we will arrive at an empty grave where history changes forever. And as we move through each miracle, we will listen for the lesson hidden inside it. Not a cold lesson, not a harsh lecture, but a living truth. A truth about faith, about mercy, about courage, about obedience, about what God can do when we have reached the end of ourselves. Stay with me until the end. Because the greatest miracle is not only what Jesus did back then. The greatest miracle is what he still does in the hearts of those who believe. And now, let us open the first scroll. The first miracle did not happen in a temple. It happened at a wedding. In a small town, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. There was music, laughter, dancing, and the warm feeling of family gathered together. The air was full of joy. Tables were crowded, cups were raised, and for a moment it felt like the world was exactly as it should be. Then a problem began to spread quietly through the servants. They ran out of wine. To us, it may sound small, but in that culture, it was a disaster. It was shame, was a celebration about to collapse into embarrassment. People would remember that wedding for the wrong reason. A moment meant to honor a family would become a story of failure. And Jesus was there. Not as a distant holy figure. Not as someone too sacred for ordinary life. Jesus was there in the middle of laughter, in the middle of people, in the middle of a human moment. His mother spoke to him. The servants waited, and Jesus walked towards 6 large stone jars filled with water. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic, just water. Then, with calm authority, he told them to fill the jars to the brim. And when they drew from them, the water had become wine. Not just wine. The best wine. The kind of wine that made the guests pause, surprised, as if joy had been restored with a single breath. The celebration came alive again. The shame was removed. The fear disappeared. And the miracle happened quietly, almost privately, as if Jesus did not want applause, only restoration. Here is the lesson. Jesus cares about what you think is too small. He cares about the moment you are afraid will fall apart. He cares about the quiet embarrassment you carry. He cares about the places where joy is slipping away. And Jesus does not only repair, he transforms. He takes what is ordinary and makes it new. He takes what is empty and fills it. He takes what is weak and turns it into something stronger than it was before. The first miracle teaches us that God is not far from our lives. He steps into our weddings, our tables, our homes. And he restores joy where we thought it was finished. The second miracle begins with a crowd. People had followed Jesus far from the towns, far from the marketplaces, far from comfort. They sat on the ground for hours, listening to every word. Something in his voice made them forget time. Something in his presence made them believe hope was real. But the sun began to fall, and hunger began to rise. The disciples looked around and saw the problem. Thousands of people, families, children, and almost no food. It felt impossible. It felt irresponsible. Felt like the moment was about to break. They wanted to send everyone away. They wanted to push the need back into the world. But Jesus looked at the crowd, and he did not see an inconvenience. He saw people. They found a small offering, 5 loaves, to fish, a meal so small it seemed almost embarrassing in the face of such need. And Jesus took it into his hands. He looked up, he gave thanks, and then he began to break the bread, and it kept coming. The food multiplied, not with chaos, but with order. People ate, and ate, and ate, until every stomach was full. And when the disciples gathered what remained, there were baskets of leftovers, more than what they started with. This miracle teaches us something deep. God does not always start with abundance. He often starts with surrender. Jesus did not ask for what they did not have. He asked for what they could offer. And when that small offering was placed in his hands, it became more than enough. This is the lesson. When you feel like your resources are too small, your strength is too weak, your time is too limited, your faith is too fragile, do not hide it. Do not dismiss it. Place it in the hands of Jesus, because Jesus is not limited by what you bring. He is revealed through it. And there is another lesson. Jesus fed the crowd because he refused to separate spiritual needs from physical needs. He did not say, "You have heard the word, now go suffer hunger." He cared for the whole person. In a world that often forgets the hungry, Jesus remembers. In a world that counts scarcity, Jesus multiplies, and he still does. The next miracles happen on the sea. The Sea of Galilee was known for sudden storms. Calm waters could turn violent in minutes. And one night, the disciples were caught in one. The wind screamed. The waves crashed into the boat. The water rose. The men who had grown up around that sea began to fear death, and Jesus was with them. But what shocked them most was not the storm. It was his calm. Jesus stood up in the chaos. He did not panic. He did not shout in fear. He stretched out his hand and spoke words that sounded impossible. "Peace, be still." And the storm obeyed. The wind stopped. The waves settled. The sea became smooth like glass. And the disciples stared at him with trembling wonder. "Who is this?" they whispered, "that even the wind and the waves obey him?" Here is the lesson. Jesus does not only calm hearts, he calms storms. He has authority over what terrifies you. He is not threatened by the chaos around you. And then, on another night, the disciples were on the water again, struggling, exhausted, fighting the waves. And in the darkness, they saw something that made their blood turn cold. A figure walking toward them on the sea. At first, they thought it was a ghost, because the human mind does not expect the impossible. The human mind expects fear. But the voice came across the water. "Do not be afraid. It is I." Jesus stepped on the waves as if they were solid ground. He walked across what should have swallowed him. And in doing so, he taught them this truth. The waters that threaten you are not stronger than the one who walks above them. Sometimes God does not remove the storm immediately. Sometimes he comes to you in the storm. And his presence becomes the miracle. The lesson is not only that Jesus can calm the sea. The lesson is that Jesus is Lord even when the sea is not calm. And if he is with you, you are not alone. The next miracle happens in Jerusalem, where the streets were crowded and the religious leaders watched everything closely. There was a man there who had been blind from birth. He had never seen a sunrise, never seen the faces of his family, never seen the colors of the market, never seen the sky. His world was made of sound and touch and memory. And people looked at him with pity, but also with judgment. Some believed his blindness must be punishment. Some believed his suffering must be someone's fault, and he lived under the weight of that assumption. Then Jesus came to him. Jesus did not treat him like a problem. He did not treat him like a lesson for others. He treated him like a person. Jesus made mud with his saliva. He placed it gently on the man's eyes, and then he gave him an instruction. Go and wash in the pool of Siloam. The man could have doubted. He could have questioned. He could have refused. But he went. He washed. And when he opened his eyes, light rushed in for the first time. Shapes became real. Colors became alive. Faces became visible. The world that others took for granted became a gift. And the people around him were stunned. Here is the lesson. Jesus is not only a healer, he is the one who brings sight. Not only physical sight, but spiritual sight. He opens eyes that have lived in darkness. And notice this. The miracle involved obedience. The man had to go and wash. Faith is not always passive. Sometimes it requires movement. Sometimes it requires trust before you see the result. This miracle teaches us that God is not limited by what has been broken for a long time. Blind from birth, years of darkness, decades of loss. None of it was too late for Jesus, and it teaches us something else. Jesus did not only restore sight, he restored dignity. He restored identity. The man was no longer just a blind beggar. He was a witness. When Jesus opens your eyes, your story becomes testimony. The next miracle takes us to a village near Gergesa, a place where fear had settled into daily life. There were people there tormented by spirits. Their minds were not at rest. Their bodies were not at peace. Their lives were controlled by something darker than themselves. The village had learned to live with the terror, as if freedom was impossible. Then Jesus arrived. He did not flinch. He did not step back. He did not treat them as untouchable. He walked straight into the pain. And with a word of command, Jesus freed them. The spirits begged not to be sent into nothingness. And Jesus allowed them to enter a herd of pigs nearby. And the moment they entered the animals, the pigs ran wildly and plunged into the water. The people watched as the torment ended. The village that had been haunted became quiet. The ones who had been broken were now calm and whole. Here is the lesson. Jesus has authority over darkness, not partial authority, not limited authority, complete authority. There are people today who feel trapped in fear, trapped in addiction, trapped in thoughts they cannot control, trapped in pain they cannot explain. And this miracle reminds us that Jesus does not fear what we fear. He confronts it. He commands it. He breaks it. And there is another lesson. Freedom is not always comfortable for the people watching. The villagers lost their pigs. The miracle cost something. And sometimes people prefer familiar bondage over costly freedom. That is a hard truth. Sometimes a community learns to live with brokenness because healing would change too much. But Jesus is not interested in keeping the world the same. He is interested in restoring what the enemy has stolen. This miracle teaches us that when Jesus enters a life, chains break and peace returns. And the person you thought was beyond help becomes a testimony that God is still stronger than darkness. Now the story shifts. Not to a miracle of healing, but to a miracle that feels like a warning. Jesus and his disciples came across a fig tree. It looked promising. It had leaves. It had the appearance of life. But when they came closer, it had no fruit. And Jesus spoke to it. No one expected what happened next. The tree withered from its roots. This miracle was not about anger. It was about truth. It was a living message. Here is the lesson. God is not impressed by appearances. God is looking for fruit. A life can look religious and still be empty. A person can have words and still have no love. A heart can have leaves, but no compassion. And Jesus warned his disciples that faith without fruit is a dead thing wearing a living mask. Then we come to one of the most astonishing miracles. Jesus received news that his friend Lazarus had died. By the time Jesus arrived, Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. The grief was heavy. The air was thick with sorrow. His sisters were broken. And Jesus, who had healed the sick and calmed storms, stood at the tomb and wept. That alone is a miracle for many hearts. The Son of God wept. He did not rush past their pain. He entered it. Then Jesus told them to roll away the stone. And with a voice full of power and compassion, he called, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus came out alive, wrapped in burial cloths, shocking everyone who watched. Here is the lesson. Jesus is not only Lord over sickness, he is Lord over death. And he does not only restore life, he restores hope where it seems impossible. If you have ever stood at a place where you thought it is too late, this miracle speaks to you. Jesus arrives even when it feels delayed. And his voice reaches places no one else can reach. The final miracles lift our eyes beyond the earth. Jesus took 3 of his disciples up a high mountain. They were tired. They were ordinary men. They had followed him, but they still did not fully understand who he was. And then, without warning, Jesus was transfigured. His face shone like the sun. His clothes became dazzling white. And 2 figures appeared beside him, Moses and Elijah, speaking with him. The disciples were overwhelmed, trembling, caught between fear and awe. This moment was not for the crowd. 'Twas for the disciples. It was a glimpse, a revelation, a reminder. Here is the lesson. Jesus is not only a teacher. He is the glory of God revealed. He is the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. And even when his path leads toward suffering, his identity remains divine. And then we come to the greatest miracle. Jesus was crucified. His followers were crushed. They believed all hope had died on that cross. They believed the story had ended. The one they trusted was buried in a tomb. But on the 3rd day, the tomb was empty. An angel spoke words that have echoed through history. He is not here. He is risen. Jesus appeared alive. He showed his hands and his side. He stood before them, not as a memory, but as victory. Death had been defeated. Here is the lesson. The resurrection is not just a miracle. It is the foundation of faith. It is the declaration that love is stronger than death. That darkness does not get the final word. That sin does not get the final word. That the grave does not get the final word. These 10 miracles form a path. From a wedding to a tomb, from water to wine, from bread to abundance, from storms to peace, from blindness to sight, from torment to freedom, from empty religion to true fruit, from death to life, from hidden glory to revealed victory. And now the story turns to you. If these miracles moved your heart, subscribe to Open Scrolls and Pergaminos Abiertos for more Bible stories that strengthen faith and awaken the soul. Share this video with someone who needs hope. And leave a comment below telling us which miracle touched you most and why. Until next time, remember this: Jesus still transforms. Jesus still provides. Jesus still calms. Jesus still heals. Jesus still frees. Jesus still raises. And Jesus still lives.